And we're live. Hey, David, what's up?
Hey, we made it.
So, what we're doing today is we're in the politics Discord server with a bunch of lovely folks who have already joined us. And you can use the feature where you can raise your hand. You can come up on stage, speak with us, and we're going to have a conversation with you. And David, do you want to introduce the topic?
Sure. This week we're talking about gender and what it is and what it means. The premise of our show that we typically do is not to debate, but to try to think the thought process all the way through. Like we try to understand uh, point A to point Z. We talk to people, we ask them how they come to conclusions, and we try to find the way to too. And yeah, Pierce, anything else?
Yeah, that pretty much took the words right out of my mouth, David. Yeah, we try to have these conversations. We try to get the whole picture. We try to get a really good understanding of where you're coming from, how you got there, and yeah, that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah. Let's just see what the room feels like. Let's roll somebody up.
All right,
Let's go for
let's
it.
let's let's get someone up here. Hello.
Hello, hello. Did my mic work? Everything good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounding good.
Thank you, guys. How are you?
Dandy
Doing
like
pretty
candy.
good.
That's nice. That's nice. I mean, like I think about this topic. Like I had like few times like conversation even on the server about it, and to be honest, with all respect, I think for me, who it's like from like how to say like eastern part of the world,
Mm.
like the question what is gender, it's like really weird, because like for me and like my kind of understanding of that, it's like I think the answer it's like really clear, like it's kind of how to say that in English, it's refers to like the characteristic of the like males and the females, and like what like the guys have and what the like like women's have, that's kind of my perspective on it.
Hmm. Can you think of any instance where there would be a uh, separate word needed?
I'm sorry, can you kind of like explain what like my English is like really bad, like and my vocabulary is limited, so
Sure, sure. And my English is bad and it's my first language, so it's understandable.
no, it's okay.
Um, so you've got body parts, you've got like characteristics in that regard. Is there anything that we consider a part of gender that is not just the physical parts to you, like in your experience in the Eastern world?
I mean, yes, the genes. The it's probably like the genes, the things what is like inside us, Like if we like gonna take out like the guys having like the penis and like females having the vagina, like only thing else like what we can like actually take it's the genes, not the genes. Like I mean, like I think it's the genes.
And so, are you? I think the word that many people use for that is like a sex, like semi-sex, correct?
Me probably, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, can be that.
What's your best guess of what people are using gender for in a different way?
Like, to be honest, I don't know. Like, like when I'm looking, like especially like what is happening on the West, the people like constantly, like using word gender, to affirm somebody like who want to people who, like, who don't know like what they are, the people like, I don't, again, like with all respect, but like with people who kind of having like mental problems, and they don't know what are they, like male or they are female, and like, that's like why they're using like that word, the gender. I'm sorry, that's best I can explain with my English. I see. I'll have to shock.
Just just a number of pathways to go with this. Just trying to make your questions count.
I
Pierce, did you
would
want to?
wonder, yeah, Killa, like,
Yes, sir.
if you could be like extremely over generously charitable to somebody who
Yeah.
thinks gender might be something other than sex, what would that argument look like? What would they say if you were like extremely charitable?
Uh, I'm sorry. Can you refer to the question again, please?
Sure. Like, maybe rephrase it a little bit. Like, if someone,
Repeat, yes.
you were to talk to someone who thought gender was something other than sex, what
Okay.
is the most the most convincing thing they could say?
Oof. That's a good question. Like, to be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
Like in my world, in my perspective, it's like really easy and it's like really clear. Like when I'm looking, like on that. But if somebody who having like different opinion, and different view on that, like I I really don't know. Like they like sometimes I heard people using like social things, like I don't know how to say that on English, but like uh the way, like how they feel, like they do things like their feelings, the social structure, like their social structure, things like that. That's only what I can say about it.
Okay.
Hmm. Pierce, I'm going to propose something here. We got a number of people waiting up in line, and Killa is very open to think about a lot of this stuff. Why don't we see if anybody wants to make some suggestions of what it could be otherwise, and we can bring Killa back up after a little bit after he's heard some people's examples.
Yeah, don't worry, don't worry.
That sounds good to me.
Uh,
That's a good
yeah,
suggestion.
thank you for bringing me up. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah, you're
coming.
welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hang out in the audience and we'll bring you back up in a little bit. All right. So maybe we'll go in order here. Who had their hand up? I made a little list, hopefully
Yeah, good work.
accurate. I I know who the next three were, but after that I get kind of lost. Hello.
Hi, thanks for choosing me. I'm Shoshi.
Hi,
Yeah,
Soshi.
you're welcome.
Have we met before?
Unfortunately, just a heads up, I'm driving, which is not a big deal. I'm just gonna hit a rough spot, and it'll just be like a minute or two where I might robot. It won't take that
Oh,
long. Hopefully, it's not too bad. But yeah, do you want me to start, or do you want to ask a question? Thank you for having me. Oh my gosh, so excited.
Yeah. Um. Well, I mean, what's your initial thought whenever you see the title, you hear the show, and uh, what are you thinking?
Oh yeah, okay. What is gender? Well, I definitely want to say off the bat that I don't think gender is sex. And then social construct. That word is used a lot for gender. I think that gender and sex can be used interchangeably depending on the context. You just fit the person means, whether they're talking about their body, their biology, or their personhood or their personality, or their sense of who they are as a person. So I think people, personalities, characteristics, like if somebody is happy or sad, all of those things apply to people and the gender of the person rather than the biology. Certainly if somebody is happy or sad, you can like measure the chemicals in the brain and stuff. So that'll be part of the sex part or the body part. Anyway, sorry, that was my answer. I went too long.
No, that's good.
Okay.
So I
Yeah, I
think
think
I
it's
would.
important actually. Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, continue on. Why is it important?
I think it's important to understand the distinction. If you want to make the word sex and gender synonymous, that's fine. But there's definitely a distinction between something like the body of a individual and their personality.
So why do you use the word personality for gender? Are personality traits all gendered?
No,
Like,
I think it's something like a personality. So maybe not exactly, but it's the social part that we associate with that person's sex that plays out as part of their personality, I guess.
hmm.
Yeah.
Is, are certain personality traits like more likely to be one gender or the other? Is that kind of what you're saying? I don't know if I understand.
Sure. Here's that part where I might robot. But I think that there are some personality traits that will be associated more highly with, let's say, men than women. Probably something like aggression will be associated, like an aggressive personality. I guess not exactly aggression, but an aggressive personality might be associated with a man more so than with a woman, something like that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And then maybe another word like uh, more socially cooperative would be for women. So the associations I think will be higher. Not to say that men can't be socially, emotionally intelligent, and that women can't be aggressive. But to answer your question, I think there are associations and connotations with male and female, men and women with characteristics like personality traits, for sure.
Where do you think these differences come from?
So the society that you live in, we're given like cues about gender in our youth, in our infancy, and into our toddlerhood, and then through our youth, it expands. Kind of like um, there's like a psychological theory of development. Vygotsky and Piaget are like psychologists that focus on childhood psychology, and there is reference to I think it's Vygotsky that more references gender and sex schemas. I might have that confused. It might be Piaget, but one of those guys talks about the schema of gender. The schema being like basically the framework that we associate these gendered patterns of society. Uh, we get a lot of clues from our family, primarily from our mom and our dad, and then we make those kind of like associations of their. I mean, I'll just use the word personality. Like if we want to like do that, parse that more, I'm happy to. But just we associate parts of the characteristics of that person or their personality in reference to gender, associating also like things like dad has long hair, or dad has short hair, mom has long hair, stuff like that. Mom has a speech pattern, dad has a speech pattern. So all those patterns get sorted into a gender schema by us as we develop psychologically.
Hmm. And do you think that is the way that gender is typically used when talked about these days?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, they're used interchangeably as well. I think that part of the language is still like fine. And then there are other situations where gender and sex are separated in the way that I described earlier, where sex is more biological and gender is a more social construct.
I'm wondering how useful using the word gender to describe kind of like these characteristics, these traits, personality. Like, is that a useful way to describe how someone is?
Yeah, I think so. It could describe well how someone is. I guess I don't know. Maybe I might want to implore what you mean a little bit more by that. But the word itself can be useful. It could have some kind of utility in a situation like, hey, that woman at the bar, give her the money or whatever. Give that man at the bar money, something like that.
Would that be a description of their appearance or something more than that in that example?
Yeah, exactly. I think gender definitely is appearance as well. So if you see
Okay.
a person at the bar with long hair wearing a long, like a dress, and then you say, hey, my friend is waiting at the bar. She has a long red dress on. It's the woman at the bar. And you look at the bar and there is a person with long hair and a long red dress. And then you go, oh, that's the woman that so-and-so is talking about. The schema is like related to how we describe people. So like, oh, there's the person with long hair, or there's the woman, or there's the person with the red dress. There are ways to identify that person that we're looking for. So that's the utility part I think that gender can provide to, sentences stuff.
Is the appearance or the schema, is there one that has like more weight to the term, or do they have equal weight? Or
The schema, I think they're different categories. So the schema is like the epistemology part, and then the reference part is sorry, not the reference, but now I'm talking about the Frege's, Gottlieb Frege's linguistic theory. I use terms sense and reference. The reference is the person, the woman or the man, and then the sense of that is more pictorial. So your sense of a woman is pictorial oriented. Like you don't need the epistemology for that to identify things in society. So the word woman or man brings up a picture in your mind, and then you can even think further and rationally about that picture in your mind. That's where the epistemology part comes into play and is connected to that.
This is a side note. This is like a random side note, but I'm on board for using like they as a general term because it's pretty straightforward. Like, okay, yeah, they're over there. They need this. But I'm gonna miss being able to differentiate 50% of the population when I'm trying to narrow down a room. The guy, the girl, that it's so I'm gonna lose that ability to lower that description specification. That's side note, useless information. Carry on with y'all's conversation. Thank y'all for coming to my TED Talk.
I hear you. Yeah, no problem.
What is gender used for in your opinion? Then, why is gender important? Why do we care what gender is if it's in general?
It's basically like styles of personality. So I do like to use the word personality. Groups like in group, out group type things in a way that is beneficial for your in group. So if you have like a group of women and a group of men, they'll tend to have similar characteristics, and then have that sort of social camaraderie or that social bonding that occurs. So yeah, when a diverse group of men and women get together, they'll behave in a social way, different than a group of men and a group of women. So I guess observing the behaviors of groups of men or groups of women, you can kind of like make those kind of, you can ascertain what those are based off of the gender. Does that answer your question? Thank you guys so much, actually. This is fun.
It leads me with more questions, honestly.
Okay.
Do you feel as though that the different type of separations in our society, like bathroom, sports, stuff like that, is that gender or sex? And from your perspective,
Gendered bathrooms. Like both sexes have to use the bathroom, so we could have one bathroom, or we can have these separate bathrooms based off of gender. And it's not like, there's the urinals for if you're standing up, so implying you have some sort of genitals to do that. And then there's the other one without the urinals. And then also at the same time, you don't have to stand up just because you know you have the capability to do so. So there's sort of like this arbitrariness to it, but it's like a social convention, and at the same time, so that I think it's sort of like you don't really need to have gendered bathrooms. You have all gender bathrooms, and you just take care of business, and everybody takes care of business. So that's a gendered thing, and then the sports thing is also gender. Um, like there is a biological component, right? Because there's basically abilities that we, I guess, assess for sports. But when it comes to men and women's sports, it's definitely a gender thing based off the thing I said earlier about groups. So it's like trans men, a trans man might feel more comfortable with other men rather than being the only man with a bunch of women, that kind of thing. So I think there's gender components to both bathrooms and sports. Obviously, there's biological ones too. Like you have to use your genitals to pee.
I'm wondering about the
99%.
sports.
Go ahead. No, I'm not saying anything important.
I know. I appreciate the joke though. Was it a joke? Something like that. The comment, whatever. Anyway, well, with the
Sports.
regards to the sport, yeah. So I think what
Yeah.
I'm hearing is like there's a certain amount of value that you put on having someone comfortable in the category of sport that they are placed into. Like if they're a trans woman, you would put value in them if they're comfortable participating with the other woman. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, for let's say a trans woman wants to play sports. She's played sports. She's really good at volleyball or whatever, and wants to join the sports league. And she's a transgender woman, and so she wants to join the women's league. She doesn't want to join the man's league.
Mhm.
She feels more comfortable in groups of women, right? And I think the most moral position to say, yeah, go ahead and join the group that you feel most comfortable with. We all deserve to play sports and be comfortable with our groups. And then the more like sensitive area is the ability part. Oh, like here's a trans woman. She's male bodied, I guess. That's what you want to describe that as. She's male bodied. So she might have like an advantage, right? But really
Mhm.
there's a diversity among all genders. Like if we want to count like 4 genders or 2, however you want to count it, there's diversity amongst those groups. And so to say, oh, here's a trans woman who's part of the group that we label as male, and so based off of her connotation or like membership in that group, we're going to assume all these characteristics about her. And I don't think that's logical. I think that's a fallacy called position, right? So the best thing to do is to go case by case. In general, the trans women are already on hormones, which affects their capabilities. And this is like a long-standing practice with men, and some hormone requirements levels that they're. I think just in general, it's
Yeah, it's starting to get
I don't
robot.
understand your.
particular sport. And
Yeah, hold tight. Your robot now. We are having a lot of trouble understanding you, and like I know you're saying like real words and stuff, but it's
It's hard to hear them. Yeah.
yeah.
understood. Hopefully that part's over. Am I clear
Yep.
now?
You're good now.
Clear now. Give it a shot.
Thank you. So just to summarize quickly, I feel like there's variance. I think it's so like it's coherent and it corresponds to reality. Say that there's variance among genders with their capabilities. There's variance in height and endurance and skill and strength, just amongst one gender. So to say that if you're part of this gender, you have these skills, this particular skill set is like composition division fallacy. Rather, we should go case by case and look at people like generally trans women are going to join the women's sports league and be totally fine. And then if there's a case where she's not on hormones or something, then we analyze that. It's possible that we say, sorry, no, you can't play in this league to her. But to say outright for all trans women, you can't play in the women's sport league, I think is a fallacy. So I support that. I support trans women in the women's sport league.
What kind of reasons would that disqualify them?
Some kind of eligibility criteria, whatever it is for that sport.
Yeah.
Let's say they have like they make a determination with medical experts and sports experts for something like running or whatever. And if there's a range at which women perform at, so we test women and get like this data, and then here comes a trans woman and we test her performance, and she does her very best and performs within that range, and she should play with that sports league. She's obviously got an advantage that'll be detectable during this like trial period, and deal with that accordingly. Maybe there's a trans league, maybe she does play with the men, and that's, I think, the best way to approach this moving forward. I don't think that I could say that we should definitely have trans women's sports leagues, period, without a justification. So I feel like I've tried my best to give that justification.
Okay. So you kind of gave like a few different strategies that we can have. One can be we have this some sort of testing criteria to see if there's an advantage. Another
Yeah.
one might be to have a transgender league of their own. Another strategy might be to put all trans women into the men league. It sounds like you think the best strategy would be to have this testing criteria. That would be what you would prefer.
Yeah. My best case scenario is to analyze trans women and trans men into sports leagues on a case by case basis, and then I guess my intuition or my hypothesis would be that most women are going to test within the range that's like quote acceptable because it's been tested for, especially if they are on hormones. And then if they're not, and we have this scenario where like, okay, they didn't meet the eligibility criteria, they overperformed, then maybe a trans league, or maybe they do play with men, maybe. And I think that's fine. I think after like some time, there's like, I think that, it's a politicized thing. So I feel like we need to approach it with ration, and both sides of the argument should provide some kind of justifications for that.
Is there anything that could happen during, like, let's say this is implemented and a league has this policy? Is there anything that could happen in the season or in the seasons to come that could change your mind and say, okay, maybe we should implement a different policy?
I can't think of anything. I mean, if my hypothesis proves correct, and we do this experiment and we see that most of the trans women perform within the range that's compatible with cis women, and then the ones that are not compatible, either they underperform, right? They just don't make the team because they don't make the cut, or they overperform, then they have to make a decision, those particular individuals.
What do they
so
do
I think,
when
however,
they overperform?
Yeah.
Where do they go?
trans league or play with men. And then, I guess I'm just focusing on trans women, but all of this applies to trans men as well.
If there was a
Yeah,
scenario, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please do. I'm just doing the okay sound. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm imagining a scenario in which, let's say, there's like a volleyball league. You brought up volleyball as an example, and let's say there was they had all women. Let's say 10 women. Just keep it simple number. And then they implemented your strategy, this policy of testing, and the best volleyball player. Let's say the criteria was if they were better than the best player on the team, that would make them ineligible for whatever testing. Who can jump the highest or something? Who's the fastest? I don't know. Who's the strongest? Some sort of criteria, right? And
They just sandbag the test.
what's that?
I'd just sandbag the test if it was me. I would just feel like, oh, I can't.
Yeah, no, that I hear what you're saying. Yeah. No, I don't want that to happen. I want trans women to perform their very best, and if they perform really good and they can compete with men, I think that's okay. Like, I mean, hypothetically, right? Like, obviously not today. That would make a big thing. But when I was going to high school, there was a woman, like a cis woman, actually on the football team, and that was interesting because she tested. She could play. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's unheard of that you'll have a league as long as everyone's at the same level, right? And maybe you've played sports before, like casually with the girl on your team, and she was like kicking ass. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Or you could have a female who's like 6'8" in high school. You know, they got some kind of crazy hormone thing, or they're just you know, it's Shaq's children, Shaq and that lady
Uh-huh.
who was in Game of Thrones. I don't know. They got together, had a big
It's
kid.
sort of like there is a difference I learned recently between like something like an advantage, and then the second category would be like an obviously a huge advantage. So to have advantages like height like that is not unheard of in sports. Like, yeah, there could be just a whole women's sport league, all cis women, and one of the women's super tall, and they have an advantage. But that's okay. That's what sports is all about. And then the other woman is fast, and then you put fast against tall and that kind of thing. But to have like a abnormally huge advantage, which is like totally obvious, I think that's a different category of advantage. I learned that recently.
Hmm.
The what I was trying to say earlier before we went down a different journey was let's say this test, you can't be better than the best person on the team. So in the coming years, let's say there's a number of trans women who try out for the team, they make the team, and then you got the best woman, and then you have, you know, maybe the second best player is a trans woman, and then the third best player is a trans woman, the fourth, fifth, and then maybe almost all of the players are trans women on the team. Would that be something that you would consider changing that policy because of?
No, it just depends on the test. If they pass the test, great. If not,
Hmm.
then they're not on the team. And if it seems like in this case, a lot of trans women tried out, but not a lot of cis women did.
Hmm. If the same amount tried out, but most of the team ended up being trans women, would that be something that you would consider changing the policy over?
Still no, but I would actually maybe inquire about the bias on part of the, selection committee there.
Hmm. Okay. You mean the like maybe the test has to be a little bit more strict?
No, if they just given that the test is like legitimate,
Mhm.
then if there's more trans women than cis women on the team, there might be a bias thing. I
Oh,
think we should definitely investigate the tests and update the test and like not say here's the test and that's it. I feel like the tests is different sports will have different criterias of those eligibility. So I think that's going to be determined between by medical experts that know the body, the human body, and then the sports experts that know the ins and outs of that sport. And then we should consistently monitor that and test that and scrutinize that with skepticism so that we ensure the best possible objective test. And it's basically, a range for cis women, and then you apply that same range to a trans woman and see how they do.
okay.
To me, that's the best way to you case by case, and you might not even need to do the test if she's out there on the team, and you ask your friend, hey, which woman is the trans woman, and you're looking at all the women, and they're all performing virtually equally with some with minor advantages, that kind of thing, then there might be no reason to do the test in the first place.
Imagine someone who might disagree with you. They might look at my hypothetical of having a majority trans women on the team, and to think that the policy should be changed. What make what might be driving them to think that there needs to be a policy change?
Well, I mean, I would try to be fair and ask them what they thought, but on my guess, I would say it's adherence to some status quo of the linguistic, which is weak in my perspective.
Hmm.
But if they provide some valid justification, I would change my mind. I would honor that and that kind of thing. But, talking with people on this platform for a while, that's my best
Mhm.
guess for you.
Okay. So kind of appeal to tradition. That's kind of what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting. Do you think there might be some sort of value upholding that? Aside from tradition?
Well, it's the same kind of thing that I said about the test. So we apply the same scrutiny and skepticism to our traditions as well. And when there's a mistake in there, we correct it, which is what we're doing as a society, basically, with this language, gendered language. Sorry, I have about 5 minutes left. Sorry, just want to give you the heads up.
Yeah. No worries. I'm not sure I understood when you said mistake, like we're correcting a mistake. Um,
Yeah, for example, like discrimination based off of being trans, or based off of being X, discrimination based off of being a woman, discrimination based off of being a person of color. So that to me is incorrect. To
okay.
say that all of group X has this characteristic because they belong to group X is like fallacious and also leads to negative outcomes, discrimination. So that's incorrect. When I say
Hmm.
correct, I mean like we're actually applying the language in a way that's more inclusive. That's correct rather than exclusive.
I hear you. I think
So how do
you probably have a. Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead, David. I've been talking a lot.
so how do you? It feels like we're saying that you you can't make the language so narrow, but you're also saying this is a specific group, and because they group themselves in this way, they are that thing. And so I'm trying to understand like how you determine someone's gender in this situation. Then, like, what does gender even mean?
Oh, cool. Thanks. It's something I wanted to say right at the beginning, but I think what in this case what we're talking about is identity. So gender identity is really important in this conversation because I mean generally someone's now I'm talking about authenticity too. So it's not about a LARP or anything. It's just someone says, "Hey, I'm a woman." Cool. It's really that simple. So I defer down to the identity for their gender. I'm a man. Okay, cool. No matter what their body looks like or what they sound like or anything. So I've actually done like a lot of reading and theory, and I think that's just like a heuristic at this point for me. Is oh, you say you're this, and I feel it feels authentic. Cool, that's what I will call you. Um, Maybe next time we can get more into that, but I think the identity part is really important to honor and recognize. It is something that we practice already, so it's based off of a courtesy ethic that we already practice, and now we're just including trans people within that practice. And so that to me is the correction. And I think there is some, like I guess, unwillingness to do so, but I feel like if you really think it through, it makes sense because it's courteous and inclusive. And those who are kicking and screaming against that, I hope that they don't get too upset about it and figure out a way to bring logic to the equation and figure out what they need to do in their social situations. Yeah.
So it sounds like you have this like value of comfort that you want everybody to be comfortable. It- Would that be the value that's upholding your position?
Um, I guess so. I don't really think about that, but definitely comfort to me is something that's important for people and for it's valuable, has definitely value.
If
Um,
if
yeah, when
someone
people,
were to
yeah.
disagree with you, what do you think their value would be? Would there be a value that's higher than that that's supporting their position?
Not, I wouldn't say it's higher than that, but like discomfort can also be valuable as well.
Mm,
Like when you're learning and growing, it's uncomfortable, and actually we're supposed to lean into that and lean into the discomfort. So the discomfort can also be an indicator, which could also be have value too. Comfort has value for like a different reason. People can be their authentic selves when they're comfortable and perform at their best and be the most productive, etc.
I wonder if the value that someone who might disagree with you, their what they might be prioritizing, what value they might be prioritizing, in regardless of their interpretation, because I'm sure they have a different interpretation than you. It, do you think it might be fairness?
No, I think in general, like people are fair. Like people who think that sex and gender are synonymous, and people that think
Mhm.
that sex and gender are distinct terms. Um, like I don't know. I mean, I guess I have to draw from anecdote in reality. Like there's plenty of people that don't do like transgender pronouns, but they're totally courteous to transgender people that I've witnessed in my society. And then there's
Yeah.
also a growing group of people that do, consider sex the distinction like part of the language now. So it's sort of like, I feel like in the future the distinction becomes more and more delineated and therefore more easily comprehended by people in our society. So that's my hypothesis. Over time, trans women will be just considered women, and non-binary people, though the they them thing may or may not survive. But I just feel like trans women or women is becoming a proposition that's more coherent and more true for more people over time.
I got a lot of questions for you, but Gunther's dog has been waiting for like 40 minutes in the chat, and I want to bring him up. Bring them up here.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I'll go ahead and step off. If I was going to request just to keep in touch with me, and I'll definitely come back and talk some more.
I'd love to chat again.
Sure.
Yeah. And
Cool, you guys.
after this, if you're still around, we'll bring it back up, even if there's nobody else in the queue.
Oh yeah, I might be back in a few hours. Is this just streaming, or can I watch this video later on YouTube?
It's on YouTube. Links in the chat.
Okay, thanks so much, you guys.
Thanks for chatting with us.
Bye.
All right. Bring Gunther up. I've been waiting for I don't know. He, she, I'm not sure. Late?
Yes.
I've been waiting
Can
for a
you hear me
while.
all right?
Waiting for a while.
Yeah.
All right. So just something I'd like to. All right, you know what? Just ask a question. Ask what?
You said just ask you questions? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Just ask a question.
If I was born yesterday, meet my friend today, David here. He was born yesterday. He doesn't have any experiences, but he can do logic and language for some reason. And he was told that he needs to figure out what his gender is. What is gender, and how would he figure it out?
Gender is what is between your pants. I think that. I think gender boils down to just what's between your pants. I think it's very simple.
Do you say between your hands? Like between your hands?
Between your pants.
Oh,
In your
pants.
drawer.
That's different.
Sorry, I think
that's different.
I think it's too loud where I am. Right? I can't really. Yeah, I'm at work right now. I'm sorry. I
can hear you now.
Loud.
Yeah, you're sounding better.
Yeah, you sound better.
I'm sorry. I gotta go right now.
All right.
Hey, it's good chatting with you.
No, I'm sorry. I wish I could talk longer. I have been waiting. I have to go.
I
right now.
know. I know that timing works like that sometimes. I appreciate you.
I'll watch this later. It's been a good talk so far.
Hey, appreciate it.
The other ones.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. All right. Cool.
I was very confused when I thought I heard hands. I was like,
Between your hands.
yeah, I didn't get it. I was like, what?
I mean, I'm sure you can interpret that in some way, but
I mean, I thought the word was legs, and I was like, how am I mishearing that? Like, I don't know.
mhm.
If anyone else does want to come up in chat, you have to raise your hand so we know you're interested. Then we'll bring you up.
Honestly, I'm excited to talk about this topic because I feel like a lot of times that this is such a heated topic that people more or less want the other people to lose more than to actual understand each other. And like, I just feel like everybody gets distracted trying to talk about gender and all these things, and it becomes usually a peeing race, as they say, pissing contest. I don't know, something. So I don't know.
I agree with you. Yeah, people. This is one of those heated things where it's emotional because it's part of your identity, and that's something that whether we want to admit it or not, we hold our identities close to our hearts. We are emotional about our identity, and when our identities are threatened, we have an emotional reaction to that for sure. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't. I think that's just something that happens. I'm not making a judgment on it, just making an observation.
I'm making a judgment on that.
Are you?
Yes. Let's bring upside down name back up.
All right, let's do it. Upside down name.
I can't figure
I
out how to
can't read it.
for
Yeah.
some- Welcome back. You there? Can you hear us? Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you. So yeah, thanks for having me back. I'm Shoshi.
Awesome.
Shoshi.
Did you used to
Okay.
have like a little hand as your icon for a while?
That's me. Yeah, I did have
Yeah.
that for the longest time.
We've chatted for a few times. Now
Oh,
that
I
you
think.
mention it.
Yeah. Cool,
But
cool.
anyways, okay, I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked Gunther earlier. So imagine I was born yesterday.
Huh.
I don't have any experiences. I'm trying to just figure out my life and everything. It's my second day on Earth, and someone says I need to figure out what gender I am. What would I do to figure out what gender I am? How would I know?
Wait, everybody.
One more time. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So are you there? Are you by yourself?
Yeah,
And someone asked what gender you are.
I found a note.
Found a note. Yeah. Cool. So you're living on an island or whatever by yourself, and you find a note that says, "What gender are you?"
Yep.
Right. But I don't know what the word gender means. Is that hypothetical? I wouldn't know what it meant.
Well, how would we find out?
If I don't know what it means, I'll just be like, "What the fuck?" And then I would have to make it up or something. I
Okay.
couldn't find out about it.
Let's pretend that I woke up by myself and I just walk outside the front door. I live in America.
Okay.
What do I do next? How do I figure it out?
Ask other people what it means. Since now that we're in America.
Hey, Sochi, I'm David. I was born yesterday. What does gender
Yeah.
mean? And how do I know what my gender is?
It's if gender it's like going to be a system here. So I'll ask you some questions. Do you like to wear nail polish?
Sure.
Cool. Do you like to wear your hair long?
No.
No. Okay.
Yes.
So do you like,
Yes,
so
yes, I changed my mind. Yes.
Okay,
You
cool.
won't
So
see my video.
this is
I
like
think you're driving. I have long hair and
This-
I put it out of the way.
oh yeah, cool. So you've got long hair. You like to paint your fingernails.
Sure.
Let's see here. Do you let me ask you questions about clothing and then that would be based off of feminine clothing and feminine fashion. And I would say, here, do you like this dress? Here, do you like this this outfit? Do you like this hairstyle?
Yes, like
you
them
like
all. I love them.
We get all into makeup and stuff too.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
like this eye palette and like this type of mascara and look at these falsies, etc. And you just be like,
Styling and
yes, yeah,
profiling.
that's what I mean. Like, okay, cool. This is all being feminine. And then I would ask you about your body. I would be like,
Okay.
well, I mean, we're all adults here, right? I'd be like, do you have boobs? What's down in your underpants there? And you might say something like, yeah, I got boobs. And then what's down in your underpants there?
Well, I got
And-
boobs from the weight, and I have a penis.
Cool. So that penis is kind of important. So then I would explain to you what sex was, and then that like I would explain to you about how people with penises generally don't like all of those things that you said yes to. Generally, people with penises are like, no fucking way, you know, or I don't know or whatever. And then so I would say that so those people that are like fuck that shit are called men. That's a group of men, and that's one gender. But you seem to be part of female gender, woman gender. But mostly you would have like a vagina if you're a woman. But there is this thing called transgender. So I'll explain that to you. Then I would ask you what you thought your category was. That's how I would answer that.
Are there? What do you call a man who feels they're a male but likes all those things and has all those interests and dichotomies?
A man.
Okay. So what's the difference? Like, what's the missing step from that to so you like all those things, but you still feel you're a man or male or whatever the term is we use here. What would they have to feel, think, learn, understand differently to reach that next step?
I'm sorry. Can you ask that one again? I kind of lost track.
Okay, so a hypothetical you were saying before, the interests, the dispositions, and all that regard. Yes to all those things, but they still feel they're male. Or no, they don't know anything yet. They like all those things, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're female. What would it take for them to be female?
Right.
From that point.
Well, it's like the same thing. If they like all of those things and they have a vagina, then female would work. So that they've sort of like checked two boxes here. Like when they have a vagina, they check the biology box. So a person with a vagina is generally considered a woman. Not in every case, but women have vaginas. And then the other box, the long hair and makeup and all that stuff, check. So there's check two boxes here. But really, I can't, like in this hypothetical, I would say if we were at like Starbucks or something and you were my barista and you checked those two boxes, I would say, thank you, ma'am. Or I would say, thank you, young lady, or whatever I would say. Just I would gender you that way. And then I might like that person might be like, hey, fuck you, I'm a dude or whatever. Then I would have to apologize for that. So that what that person says is important to me. So what you say is important to me. I would be like, oh, let me explain to you as much as I can about what gender is. Now you fill in the missing piece of what you want yourself to be. And I would explain the biological part in coherence and with as much detail against the social construct part. And also I would go into it maybe a little bit deeper, but just I guess I would leave it at that right now.
I've been trying to
Like
listen.
Oh, go ahead.
Been trying to listen as closely as I can. I've even been taking notes sometimes, and I really do want to understand. I'm not sure if I understand correctly, so please correct me if I'm mistaken. But it sounds like you're saying that really the most important factor when it comes to determining what someone's gender is just what they say, what gender they feel they are. Is that right?
Basically, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Now that's when I say I just defer to the identity. I have done a lot of like research into that, so I can just use that as my justification now. But I'm happy to expand on it, I guess. Come on.
It's like a self identification. It's like an internal feeling that someone has.
Self ID. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a feeling of like you pick up the schemas in your childhood, and it's whatever you're drawn to. I think in general, like boys are drawn to boy things and girls are drawn to girl things, but that's not always the case. So on that level, yes, it's like I think we called them dispositions. And then, in a more complex version of that, that's your identity. I like these things, that makes me a girl. And that's valid. That's perfectly valid on an authentic level. Someone really likes those things. They even like so far as have other people refer to them that way. And when someone doesn't refer to them that way, it's not what they don't want that. And I think that's important if someone's like, hey, this is important to me, that we just honor that. And now that's become basically part of the courtesy. Oh, let's assume this person is trans, which isn't always the case, and use the trans pronouns for this trans person. And then boom, they're included. And then if they don't want to be, if they're still like, hey, no, I'm a femboy, I'm lady boy, then they'll tell you. I think that's fine too. Sorry about that.
So it sounds like these I don't know, I forgot the word you used. I think think you said schema.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it sounds like there's not a very high importance on those things and what like types of things this person prefers. It seems like it's more of just how they identify regardless of all those things.
I'm sorry, I didn't track that part. Can you summarize that?
Yeah, like let's say I got my friend Fred, and Fred likes likes nail polish and wears his hair long. I keep on saying he. I shouldn't. Anyways, Fred likes. Let me start over. Fred likes to paint his nails. Fred likes to have long hair. Fred likes to play with dolls. Fred likes to wear dresses. Fred likes all these things. But Fred says, "Hey, I'm a dude. I
What time do you get
am."
home?
Someone was talking to me there.
It's okay. So Fred likes all
Someone
these.
interrupting us.
Fred
My
likes
son.
all these things that are traditionally very feminine, but then Fred says, "Hey, I'm a dude." It's really more of about the what he says rather than any of those other things, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So those other things
Dudes
aren't
can like
really a
really
factor,
big.
and
That's fine.
yeah. So those other things aren't
It
even
is a
really a
factor.
factor. It is?
Well, not for Fred, I guess, but in general, yeah,
Yeah.
those are definitely factors.
Hmm. Like, you mean like it's a factor in how Fred might make that determination, or how others see
Exactly.
him, or just for Fred? Like,
hmm
okay. I think
Yeah,
I
it's
understand
like
that.
because there's also this like I feel like I alluded to it earlier. So there's the aesthetic of what it is to look and sound like a woman, and then there's the
Mhm.
camaraderie part. Like I get along better with women or with men. So Fred's like, hey, yeah, I like nail polish and grow my hair long, and like sometimes people are like, give this woman her change back or whatever, and I get mistaken, but I'm still a dude because I like to hang out with dudes, that kind of thing. I feel like that's important too. Like, and
Mhm.
Fred's friends are like, holy shit, Fred, what the fuck, what happened to you, whatever. Fred's like, shut up or whatever. So that's the third factor. So I feel like there are definitely femboy type people that are super femme, but they still consider themselves men because they socialize with men.
Even
That's just
outside of
one
that,
factor.
even if Fred
Yeah.
socializes with only women, like he doesn't even have any dude friends, can he still say that he's a dude? Is that still that still makes him
If he says so, yeah.
male?
It's sort of
Okay.
like there's these patterns here that I would be like, hey, yeah, it's sort of like there's these patterns that I would say, oh, if this person checks boxes 1 and 2, they're probably women. They're probably going to identify as a woman. And if they don't, then I go, huh, and I just change. It's just sort of like perplexing. But whatever justifications Fred has, I would have to ask Fred to provide them, or I wouldn't care. I would just be, then I don't really care. I actually had a friend who was a cis woman, but was like, my pronouns are he, him, and didn't really like check boxes 1 or 2. And then it was just like a thing for a little while, and we all called them him. And I don't know what happened to him actually. What happened to him? They're still my friends on Instagram, but it's sort of like they don't really change up their look, their aesthetic. So I don't know what that's all about. But I'll just call him him.
Yeah.
That's rare. He's like the only guy that's like that I know. But I think people are kind of like can be like that sometimes.
Does this framework apply to other social constructs like uh, age or race or like culture? Like, could you say like I hang out with mostly 70-year-olds and I play bingo and I wear my pants up to my waist, like under my chest here, and identify pretty much in all ways as a 70-year-old.
Yeah.
Does the framework still work in that regard?
Yeah, I think so, because there's something that's going to be like when it comes to age, there's a social construct, and then there's a ontological part. I like to use that word better because it's time based. So someone's on Earth for 70 years, that's a fact. And someone's on Earth for 30 years, that's a fact. You can't change that. Same with trans people. Like someone's born with a particular genital, that's a fact. The other genital, that's a fact. So there's correlation there. But then the social construct part, that makes sense too. Someone has a mentality of age 70, and they happen to hang out with people age 70, and it's all coherent and everything. They reference the same pop culture references, they use the same slang, etc. Yeah, that person's 70 years old, right? I mean, if they like, it's not a phenomena in the age part, like, hey, I identify as 70, you need to call me 70. I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but I would be like, have no problem with that.
Or like if somebody was raised in another country, predominantly around a race that is very contrasting in a lot of ways to their own in some way. I don't know. Just very noticeably different. And they take on the culture. They only hang out with people who are like that. And they feel as though they are that race. Do you think that's something that could be honored in that same framework?
Yeah. In the sense that, like, and it's a similar thing too. Like, to be like in the U.S., we have Black culture. Well, one of the criteria for belonging to Black culture is actually being Black, and so there's Black is not like literally Black. It's there, but noticeably a different pigmentation of the skin, right? And then specifically more African American Black culture, because lots of different ethnicities have really dark skin too. I'm Filipino. A lot of my relatives are like basically Black, that same color.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you want to be part of Black culture, like one of the prerequisites is that you are ontologically or racially or biologically Black. So at the same time, that it's a culture. So let's say that you are adopted white baby in that culture. You're going to have some connection to Black culture. You're going to understand the social construct part of Black culture, even though you're not ontologically Black. And the practice, I believe, is that that person's not Black. So within Black culture, if you don't have Black skin, that person's still white, even though they could be accepted within that culture. They'll still be labeled as white. So I don't think that's allowed in that epistemological framework. I mean, that's just based off of my like understanding of the culture, because I'm not Black. I don't know. So that seems to be the case, which I would honor that, right? So if I'm at a party and it's a Black party and there's a white guy there and he's like, I'm Black, and everyone's like, that's fucked up, don't say that. I wouldn't be like, hey, that's his racial identity, everybody. I wouldn't do that. That's incoherent. In the situation where white guys like, I'm Black, and everyone's like, yeah, that guy's whack, whatever, we don't care, then that'd be fine, just whatever. He's just saying shit. He's just talking shit. So yeah, it's like, I think traditionally this is more referred to as multiculturalism, and I think there's like lots of different or being biracial or something. So I think that's a phenomena that does happen. So to answer the question, yes, like on that level of it. But there is some other phenomena where there was a woman from the Netherlands who tanned her skin Black and then claimed to be Black and transracial. And that's her, I feel like, and she's a white Swedish person or something, or from the Netherlands maybe. She was like, I'm kind of like, that's a little bit like you're taking like one characteristic and then without doing any of the other work. Like maybe she's not even part of a community. I didn't think she was. I think she was just a white person in a white community that tanned her skin dark and then claimed to be Black. And that's not coherent. That's not like the same as multiculturalism. So I think that's, I don't know. I don't think there's justification for that, basically, for that woman from the Netherlands. But definitely for, the person who's like adopted white baby or something, that would be more coherent.
So you said with the example of the
Wow,
white
guys.
guy.
Thanks for letting me cook on that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So your example with the white guy at the party, and he was like, "Hey, I'm black," and then it sounds like you wouldn't accept that. You said that was whack, right? And I'm wondering what the difference between uh, the white guy saying, "Hey, I'm black," and let's say a trans woman saying, "Hey, I'm a woman." Like one you would accept, and the other one you would not accept. What is the difference in the reasoning that you would accept one and not accept the other?
Well, unfortunately, it is the case that there are many like communities where there's a trans woman there, and everybody, like maybe a religious community or something, they would all just be like, "No, that's a." Can you hold on 1 second, please?
Hmm. I don't know if they can hear or not. So
Okay, I'm back. Thank you for
there
that.
they are. Yeah.
I had to talk to somebody again.
Rude.
I probably have. Well, okay, I think 10 more minutes or something. I know, right?
Okay. We'll wrap up and we'll get the next person up anyway.
Okay, sorry for interruptions here. Just what started happening. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, and with
Cool.
regards to my
I forgot
question,
what I was saying, sorry.
yeah, so I was wondering why you personally would not accept the white guy saying, "Hey, I'm black," but you would accept like a trans woman saying, "Hey, I'm a woman."
Yeah, trans women or women, I would advocate more for that. Than like if I'm at like church or something and I go there with my trans girlfriend or something,
Let's talk a
and everybody
context
is like,
that is like
"Shit, why am I
ideal.
bringing him? He's a freak or whatever." Or
Yeah, of course. There's going to be
either
asshole people. Like we're not talking about asshole. We're talking about
then
like ideal
if
situations here.
it's like courteous and whatnot, then I would have to like if I approach that like, "Hey, you're misgendering her," that's not moral. That might not be the best approach, you know.
I think we're a
So
little off track.
I'm wondering on
okay.
what the
Back.
difference, like why you would accept one and not accept the other.
Sex is a physical reality, like the body parts and stuff like that, and melatonin, like melanin in the skin is a physical reality. But they're both saying that they're different than what they have currently. Or
One reason why, yeah, one reason why it's hard for me is because I'm not black, so I can't
like
speak for black
Filipino.
people.
What if somebody said they were Filipino?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, we can move to
I'm
that.
cool with
I'm
that.
not trying to put you on the wrong spot here.
Yeah, for that's a better idea for a Filipino than I would just say totally. Like honorary Filipino is a thing in my family.
Can I be an
Right.
honorary Filipino?
Well, me too.
You could be, yeah, you could be. You have to eat balot, and then you can be honorary Filipino.
Okay, yeah. Send it my way.
Okay. Well, look it up first. You might not want to. It's called BALUT, balot. It's really delicacy in the Philippines. You know what I mean, though, right? You know what I'm talking
yeah, but do you consider trans women honorary women, and like, does it hold the same connotation?
about? Yeah, I guess you could call it honorary women. Because when I say honorary Filipino, like to, let's say my like my uncle Michael or something. Like I do
Yeah.
have like an uncle who is married to a Filipino woman in my family, and yeah, we treat him the same as everybody else, and like obviously he is white, so that's like a thing about his aesthetic that is something that he's not willing to change. He doesn't want to put brown paint on his body, and that's he's just white guy. So honorary Filipino, like that works for him. And then we are in the sense that honoring honorary woman, honorary women or women, I guess. It's the same thing. It's like this principle of charity. One difference is it's not a race thing, it's a gender thing. So like the gender binary has characteristics, and you can be a Filipino girl or a Filipino boy and have these characteristics and look that way. So trans people are like definitely willing to change their aesthetic. That's part of being trans, part of the, like, I guess, gender dysphoria, euphoria thing. But for race, it's we just don't handle it the same. That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Could your uncle Mike apply for a government document that said he was Filipino?
No, he's American citizen, so no, I don't think you can just get that. You have to maybe
But like
live there
under
for
his
a while.
race, like to have his race
Yeah.
listed as Filipino.
No, you would just have to have that as white race, I guess.
Do you get the question I'm asking there? Like,
Like, could
Right,
he
and I
mark
would still say
Hispanic?
there's definitely categorical differences between race and gender.
what types of differences would somebody changing their gender on some like a government document make?
For race, and so if the person's like in like Filipino culture, and they do dye their hair darker and wear brown skin and call themselves Filipino, there might be some arguments that the government should recognize and they're authentic about it. In that scenario, that would be, I guess, congruent with the logic for trans women. But, just on the surface, just prima facie, you can almost like detect that the categories are different because we're not willing to do that. We are willing to do that for gender, but we're not willing to do that for race because of the connotations, because of the way that it plays out culturally and that kind of thing. So there's like big differences there that I'm basing my reasoning on. These are tough questions. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you chatting.
I'm just gonna do this. Okay. Cool. Just driving my son to the bank real quick.
Oh yeah. Banker hours. You are in a different place than me.
There was actually had another like member of the family that was sort of like, Michael's not a Filipino. Like, fuck that guy. That kind of thing. A little bit racist against white people
Whoa,
in my
that's too
family.
far. Mike's a good guy. Come on.
Mike is a good guy. Like he was like, I don't know. It was a little weird, but I just brought that up because like, well, that's kind of part of the conversation, I guess. Yeah, my uncle's a good guy. You guys, come on, leave him alone.
Yeah.
He eats balot, you guys. Leave him alone.
Okay.
Yeah, so trans women are going to have to do something like congruent to that to like be recognized. It's not earning it. Like I don't think it's like it's just people will see, oh, a woman, and then they might detect that you're trans, but I don't think that people generally go, oh, they're trans, oh, that you're a dude. It's discourteous to do that. So like, oh, okay, they just sort of accept it, or they've already accepted it and they go with that. Or they might not accept it, but they will say your name and they will avoid like any gendering, or they might just misgender you. But knowing that they're protected by this courtesy situation in that sense. So there's like some things trans women have to do in these situations. Not every society is going to accept the sex gender distinction. So like either we accept that. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So we have a general disposition of just accepting people being different or like presenting in the way they want to present, grouping as they want to group. Is there anything about being trans in this case that changes your like official categories or like permissions or things like that. Is that an understandable question? Is there
I think
anything?
so.
First, let me ask. First, is there anything in your worldview that is specific to sex that is like a protected class of sorts? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think that there are like group dynamics, and then there's a larger group dynamic. So like small group dynamic, large group dynamic. In the small group, let's say that there is a spa that is women only spa, women only, and spa is a really good business, a lot of clientele, and it's discovered, or one day a trans woman is there, and like there's the small group part. This particular spa, they're kind of conservative, and everybody's like, "This sucks that trans women's here. I feel uncomfortable." But also at the same time, there's a law. There's like a law that she has a right to go there. Now the trans woman has to make a decision. Does she want to go enforce her rights and just be like, no, despite the obvious discomfort, or will she go, okay, I'll go down the street? So
Okay,
that's the choice.
Let me ask you first. Do you feel in your worldview that there are any places that should have specific sex only separation?
I really
scenarios?
can't think of anything. I can't really think of anything other than the small group situation, where let's say there's a therapy support group and it's about rape survivors, and it's all cis women, and a trans woman comes in and she's really tall and triggers her. Same thing. She'll have to decide. And there is some responsibility on this woman to control her triggers. But in that situation, she's triggered. So it might be courteous for her to walk out of the room for a minute, you know, and give that other person some space in the therapy. She's going to have to decide on that. And like, if there's a policy in place that trans women are allowed there, the cis woman who's triggered, that's information that she needs to comprehend about that situation, right? So it's just context dependent for small group. And then the large group one is, I think, dictated by law. So that's where, like, I don't think that it should be mandated by law that we police the language. I think that's ridiculous. But at some point, the language will evolve and it become like the de facto situation. And I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we can tell if, like, for example, pronoun usage is a facet of our language now. It's just in use, but we'll see if it becomes more permanent.
How do you judge which value is to consider whenever you've got the small group and one person's triggered by the potential risk that they perceive, or the reminding of risk or potential risk,
Yeah.
versus the person who might feel ostracized? How do you decide which value is more important in that situation?
The small group will decide. It's going to be up to them, and whatever they decide, like if I was the person there and I wanted to be like, hey, I have my right to be here in this therapy support group. I signed up, I'm following the rules, and there is the one person who's triggered by me, and then the other women are like, hey, look, Shoshi, she's triggered, come on. That's the small group consensus. I would honor that, you know, or I would be like, well, what's my other option, right? Try to put my foot down. But let's say the other women in the group are like, to the cis woman, the other women are like, hey, come on. One of the other women takes her aside and tries to console her, and they say, hey, Shoshi, you're fine, don't leave, we're going to work this out. I would go with the consensus there, right? Thank you for giving me space.
Yeah, kids are important.
He's a good kid.
That's awesome.
He was listening this whole time. He really comprehends this stuff. We talk about it too.
How old is your kid, roughly, if you don't want to be specific?
No worries. He's 18.
18. Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah. Sure, they think about a lot of this stuff.
Boy, my son.
Mhm.
Love my son. Thank you for. I have a few more minutes, guys. This is awesome. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna ask you just a few more questions, and then you can Pierce got anything. You can shoot back any questions you have. Um, shoot. Okay. If there are scenarios at which you're saying that it's really just kind of the group consistence, but there's no sort of I hate to use the word objective, but something more substantial, a reason that there would be any distinction. But you can think of situations in which you would want only one sex as just a personal preference. You're saying that you could have it as a personal preference based on a small group, but you couldn't have it as policy. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's right. Yeah. I mean, it could be policy. It just depends on what the large group wants. And then on a moral stance, I would be like, it's going to be whatever the most freedom is for a person, that kind of thing. But the group dynamic is like important to acknowledge, because if you don't acknowledge it, it just basically goes against you. You know, if you're part of the group,
Well, if you
if
think
you're like
about
a
it,
member of that spa, and
our
the
laws
spa
are
is
the
like,
group
hey,
dynamic.
yeah, it's going to affect you one way or the other. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just the law of the jungle. You know, that's
Sure.
just what's going to be like.
So we got this support group, and they're trying to be away from people who remind them of their trauma. And let's say it's a women's group, and a man walks in who is in no way socially performing or is socially trying to assimilate into the feminine culture or whatever. They're just they look like
Like me.
you know like Pierce
Yeah.
or Dwayne the Rock
Yeah.
Johnson. I don't know. The very similar type, that type. And but they say they're a woman, and they feel as they are just as uh they have just as much right to be there as anyone else. Do you feel
Yeah.
as though that is I guess the hard line is because, like, me personally, I think that 99% of the time, or at least like 95% of the time, most people are just trying to live their life. They're just trying to fit in where they fit in and be who they feel like they want to be. But there are the exceptions of people who could abuse the system of like self-reporting. It's like, how do you if there is a situation in which they're trying to have something specific, someone could just say and not do the other things too. And I guess that's the hard part, is that you can't.
I'm actually going to say the exact same thing. It's the group consensus. Like, if the group's
Yeah.
like, holy shit, there's a dude in here. Sorry, no men allowed. And the person that looks like Pierce or like The Rock is like, I'm a woman, I'm trans. And the admin is like, oh shit, looks at their ID, it says female on it or whatever. It's the women in the establishment are gonna like be like, you know, not triggered. They'd be like, this is a no men allowed policy. This is a violation of policy. They would be justified in their anger in this situation. And then like I would advise that man to be like, dude, you just should go. Like, look at everybody's like upset here. They're gonna let you in, but it's not gonna be comfortable. Everyone's gonna be suspicious of you. You have to do something to transition. You have to do something to match category A, category B, or people in society like are gonna see you in category A, category B of man. Or I might say something like, that's what you're doing right now. You're in category A, category B of man. And I was saying like biological, like you have a beard or whatever. And then like the social part, like you're like, what's up, ladies? You're just like acting like a dude or whatever. And I'm actually trans. You're like, you know what I mean? Like you're just kind of like fucking with it. Then they're going to get that vibe. And it's not going to be pleasant for anybody. They'll probably leave. If the admin's like, you can stay, they'll probably all leave. So You know, it's like, just don't. I would be like, bro, you know, let's not do that.
But what criteria do we require of somebody to change their ID to self ID and to be reported in like a school system or something like that? I mean, what's the minimum requirement to be considered trans?
Well, self ID, but remember, it's an authentic self ID, so you can analyze for that. If someone's like all of this, like doing it for a particular purpose to go spy on women at the spa, probably you can pick up on that when they're doing that, and like that's fucked up, right?
Well,
But if
let's say
someone's
you're at
like,
the office, like you're
yeah,
at the DMV or wherever you go to change that. Like, how do you know that when they're filling out the forms? I mean, you can't put a questionnaire on the form to say, "Are you a pervert?" or something. You know, something heinous. Like again, these are the outlier, stupid people.
mhm. Yeah, for someone to go get an ID, to like pretend to be trans to get an ID so that they can go to the spa, is like highly immoral.
Yeah, of course.
And I
And
agree with you
I'm
about that.
guessing, and
I
that's
don't
what
know
I think.
how.
Like
I
conservative
don't
types
know.
are afraid of. It's like there are
Mhm.
immoral loopholes that there's not a strong defense against. I guess I think that's what I'm understanding.
Well, I think that's presuppositional though. Like trans women aren't up to no good. They're not deceptive. And so the presupposition here is the
Hey,
deception here.
99% might
Trans
not
women are
be, but
deceptive.
it's still a
Yeah.
possibility.
Doesn't
Heterosexual
matter.
people aren't up
That's
to
a
no
false.
good, but I mean, you get what I'm
Doesn't
saying.
matter.
You can't make that
Logical
blanket statement.
possibility. Now I'm getting a
People
little
are
heated.
people.
Like logical possibility doesn't equal empirical possibility. So there's no rationale for people to claim that trans women are deceptive. That's the
Not trans women in
presupposition.
general. No,
Yeah.
we're talking about a
That's what
specific
I'm saying though.
asshole.
That
Yeah.
so that deception presupposition needs to go away. Like we can't have that anymore in society. That is like bigotry. It's fallacious, etc.
Okay, let's pump the
And
brakes because
that's important to me.
like I've skipped something to give you that impression. Let's pump the brakes real quick.
Okay.
Okay. So a white guy can be a super nice guy, super asshole, right? A tall guy can be a super nice guy, super asshole. A man can be a super nice guy, super asshole. A trans person can be a super nice person,
Mhm.
total asshole. It's we're not talking about trans as a definition. We're talking about the possibility of a asshole, like a specific person who would use. What I'm saying is the policy, the current system, I think, leaves people anxious because an asshole, an opportunist, could do it. And I'm not saying that. It's definitely not saying all people do it. This is just as generic as anything. You know, I mean, blue eyes. I mean, whatever. It's just saying that there's a potential anxiety that people are expressing, and every time that they say like, okay, can we just patch this hole in the boat and we might be able to float on the ship a little more. We might feel like we can float on this boat. Um, it's becoming it gets very heated because it feels like it's becoming a personal attack against people who are trans, and I think I don't know how to bring this up organically or what. Like, I don't know. Like I'm trying to figure out how to. Do you get what I'm saying? Does that
So those
bring it
I
more
do,
close
and
to
I'm
an
going to say
interaction
the
and
exact
not a?
thing. It's all about logical possibility, and you can't say that because it's logically possible that is the case. And it's about empirical reality, right? So it's like for someone to get the ID and do that whole thing is fucked up. And when they get busted for doing that, then we'll find out about that, and then that person will have their repercussions for their guilty crime. They'll be guilty and they'll go to jail or whatever. And that's great. We put an asshole away, like you said. That's an asshole. And
Sure.
so really the beef is against assholes, not against trans women.
Agreed.
And so trans
Agreed.
women, we shouldn't be like, okay, this trans woman's authentically trans and she got her ID and she's at the spa, and we can't say that, oh, she might be an asshole. It's just, you can't draw that conclusion, right?
Well, I mean, I
So
could
that's
think
what I'm
that
saying.
a
That
cis
has to
woman
go away.
might be an
That
asshole, though.
presupposition.
That's the problem. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I could see a random cis woman and be like, oh, she might be an asshole. You know, everybody might be an asshole.
Can I illustrate what David's trying to say, but
Yeah.
illustrate it in a completely different scenario? I think David's
Well,
kind of.
the deceptive trans person meme has got to go.
Well, hold up.
That's
This
definitely
is not.
that's something I wanted to say that's really important.
This is about policy, not about trans people. It's about policy. That's
This
all.
is my point that I'm saying. Do you honor what I'm trying to say? Like, I get what you're trying to say, but what I'm trying
You're
to say
saying
is
that I'm using a stereotype.
deceptive trans meme has to go away. Well, you're the one bringing it up, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm asking what you mean. Like, do you think I'm just using like a stereotype?
No, you're making some arguments that imply the presupposition. So I'm rejecting it because it's presuppositional, and then I'm speaking actively against that. That's harmful to my community. So no, that has to go.
Keep in mind that, like, I'm viewing this.
You don't agree? Do you agree that presupposition has to go?
What is the presupposition again? Just so I can.
That trans women are deceptive.
I don't think David is saying that.
Deceptive? No, that's
right.
That's not what I'm saying.
He's talking about somebody going to the DMV to get
a person
to get their sex changed on the license.
It could be a
How do we
cis
tell
person.
if that person is a pervert? Was his question, right? And so what this brings up is putting trans women in the spotlight as far as a connotation to perversion and their deception. People like this is a long-standing meme, and that has to go. Do you agree? Yes or no?
When you say it, like
the answer is no,
meme,
I'm gonna just fail. You know what I mean?
Hold on 1 second.
Yes, no, I'm just drawing the line. If the answer is no, I'm just gonna
bail. We got to make sure we're on the same page here. We got to make sure we're on the same page here.
Please, I'm just gonna bail if you don't answer at this point. Yes or no?
I don't understand what you mean. I don't want to say yes or no before I understand.
Pierce, do you have anything else to say? I'm not talking to him anymore. Pierce, do you have anything else to say before I go? Seriously, I'm not talking to you anymore. Pierce?
Yeah. So I want to try to illustrate what David was saying before in a different context, because I think that might.
Can you answer my question too, though? Yes or no?
This is a thought.
I don't remember the question at this point. I'm sorry.
The deceptive trans person meme has to go.
Would be a meme that would be saying that all trans people are perverts or something?
Yeah.
Oh, I
don't think. Yeah, nobody should be doing that. That should go. Yeah.
Now the other guy is backing up a bit too now. So
no, I mean, we were on the same page here. We're just getting confused.
No, that's not okay. This is bad faith at this point.
We're crisscrossing thoughts here.
That's bad faith. Yeah, no, this is definitely bad faith. Let's look at the tape later and analyze it.
Sure.
But you didn't answer me
directly. Go ahead.
And now you're actually like, it's there's a thing. Like, you might not be aware of it, but it's part of trans discrimination. This idea that just by being trans, you're deceptive. That has to end. That has to end right now.
I don't think that's the case. I don't. I think that's.
So it is the case.
Yeah,
like you're just ignorant.
What I'm saying, I don't feel that way
at this point. You're ignorant of transition. I'm telling you that's the case. I'm telling you that's the case.
I understand that that's a meme.
Okay,
I'm not promoting that meme. I'm not trying to support that.
No, if you guys
every one of them.
Like, I don't like this vibe anymore. Like,
God,
it's really important, right?
We don't
assign the idea of deception to trans people. And when the trans person's talking about it, we don't act like this tool over here. Like, his point's more important. Like, you invited me onto the stage. This is the point that's more important than whatever his like debate point is. Okay, so that's it. Peace out.
Wow, that was some crossed wires right there.
Yeah.
I got
The-
like associated with people, and they didn't even hear what I was saying.
yeah,
I mean, it's a challenge for me because I want to figure out how to make my language more efficient. Like I want to figure out how to have these conversations more efficiently because I like
like I, I'll say the thing that I was going to say that I didn't get a chance to. I was going
sure.
to frame it in the sense of, so we have a policy. Let's say the
Mhm.
policy is about guns. We talk about guns in America
Sure.
all the time, right?
Yeah.
So should people have the ability to go out and buy a gun? There is a possibility they could take that gun, go into a movie theater and shoot everybody. That is a possibility. There's that
Sure.
like tiny sliver of a percent, like a percent of a percent of a percent.
Right.
Like it's a
Yes.
small
Yeah.
percent. But that is a possibility that could happen, and obviously that does happen. And
Yeah.
with regards to people kind of gaining the system with, if they're gonna get a different gender put on their ID, probably almost everybody is going to do that in good faith. Nearly
Agreed.
everybody probably is going to. But there
Yeah.
is a small percentage of perverts, probably cis men, maybe cis women, maybe trans
Mhm.
men, maybe trans women. I don't know. I guess it would be legitimate if that case. But anyways,
Anybody
they
could
could
play
gain
it.
the system, go into female spaces, and they probably shouldn't be there, right? Um, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of the same thing with guns. Like
Right.
there are those people, and should we not sell guns anymore because there's this small percentage of people who could use them in a harmful way?
hmm
It's kind of the same thing. I'm seeing it that way. Are you seeing it that way, David? Or it's like kind of
Yeah.
the similar, maybe not the
I wanted
same,
to compare it to
obviously.
like tax fraud, but that felt like that was too low of a like importance. Like, because
Yeah.
like there's people. I mean, there's people who are literally made miserable because they want to be who they want to be, and they have roadblocks to that. Like, I get that. Like, my goal is not to make people miserable. Um, what I but what one of the things I see is a lot of times these conversations happen, and there are legitimate concerns on like I want to say both, just so you know. Like the conservative is going to say something like, there's these risks, and there's these worries, and then the worries become like, well, you can't make everybody seem like they're like this. And it's like, sure, we're not. I mean, they're not. We're not there. Whatever. And then you got the leftists say like, not everybody's like that, but I mean, there's all these. I don't know. It's just so it gets so heated.
Mhm. It gets very black and white very
Yeah.
quickly, and
It's a.
there's no room for thinking about the nuance sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Yeah, and there are good faith people who are not just whatever, or just hyper
right.
religious who like yeah, I think you should be able to drive fast on the road, but speed limits are useful, like to get the outliers or whatever. It's again, it's about having systems that make it run more smooth. That's all. Um, I don't know. If you watch this, I'm a gender abolitionist. Like, I think that eventually, I hope gender goes away. Like, I think that over time, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, honestly. But I mean, I think that basically, people should be able to act and think and be how they want. And uh, I mean, that kind of made a lot of sense to me. What you're saying about it's hard to make a policy about specific sex if you think about it. Like, I get it as like a what's the word, like not traditional, but like just how the society's set up, and like, but I also understand like the risk of like things like um women might be more vulnerable to like assault and stuff like that. So it's like it's a lot to consider, and I think talking about those things doesn't make you automatically think that everybody on the opposing side is like some heinous liar, monster, or anything like that. I don't think. I don't know.
Yeah. And I don't think talking about this and having this conversation and asking these questions that I think are important.
How
I
did
don't
you?
know that we should. I don't know. It just makes me sad that people you'll ask these questions in good faith. I think you were in good faith, David,
Thanks.
and you get called these terms, and it's just like I don't know. Just makes me sad because I know you were in good faith. She obviously did not see it that way, or she. I don't know. They.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I misgendered that person. Um, yeah.
Honestly, I mean that's kind of my goal is to figure out how to have those topics be brought up around people who are more left leaning, and to have more things about the how loose gender is to, and talk about people on the right with that. Like I mean, it's like I feel like there's so much conversation that has to be had that would where we're more or less just attacking each other than getting all the way through the thoughts.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we can get all the way through the thoughts without attacking. Because
Yeah.
once, because it's sensitive. It's really sensitive, and it's tied
It
to
is.
identity, and identity is so important for
Yeah, I
humans.
get it. I get it.
And the minute our identity is threatened, we we become defensive. We absolutely become defensive.
With good reason. I
With
mean,
yeah,
it's sense of self. Like I get it.
I get it too.
It's hard.
I
It's hard
think
to trust random strangers on the internet. I get that.
And I think if I perceived an attack on my identity, I think I would probably react, maybe not exactly like that, but I'd probably be shook a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Put
like
distance, put
definitely.
aggression, all
Hmm.
sorts of things. We got
We can bring
Till
the
Till.
next person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's bring him up. Let's see what's going on here. Got a little more time.
Hey,
Hello.
what's up?
Hey
What's up?
there.
What's up? So, yeah, I want to say like this is super interesting, and I thought the topic you had before with like the woman only spa, I thought that was very interesting of a
Mhm.
topic, and
Appreciate
what
it.
people might think of that.
Do you have thoughts, or would you like to
Yes,
start from the beginning, or how do you like it?
we can do either way, but I can say about that topic that I think it should be like the how do you say it? Yeah, I think most people would understand that a woman's only spa should be for just women because most women would go there to be comfortable with only women, to not be objectified by anyone or to not be just to feel safe, you know. And even as like if someone was a transgender, like I can imagine if I was that, I would not want to go there with the risk of making someone uncomfortable. Like what would be the need for me to go to that space, you know? That's what I feel like.
Why do you feel more comfortable around someone of the same sex versus the other?
Because there is a risk of well, sexual harassment or those things, and men are physically stronger in most cases than women, those type of things. So yeah, that's I think that's biological, that's natural.
And if like a biologically strong woman was there who was also a lesbian, how would you feel?
I wouldn't feel threatened in the same way because I am also a woman, you know, and it's not the same. Like, how do you? I think statistically, there's more men doing those things towards women, so I would not feel uncomfortable in the same way, since a woman would be the same as me, you know.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Like, there's not as many lesbian abusers and rapists
Yeah,
than cis men.
Yeah, because if I'm walking in the street, I'm more scared if I see a man than a woman, for example, because there is more men doing those things, you know?
Hmm.
That's what I would say. Maybe you have some like topics or questions that we could discuss or something.
Let me think. I'm still trying to recover a little bit.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
it got a bit aggressive there, I saw.
it did. Not. I didn't. I didn't help. I was getting heated too. Like
Mm.
I like to be understood, and I like to be represented in a way that I feel like I'm presenting, and I get to. I get a little frustrated whenever I get misunderstood like that.
You felt like
What
she
happened?
was
What happened even?
you felt like she was misrepresenting you, and that's what led to some frustration?
Yeah, I think that's what got my more interrupting and aggressive
Yeah, I think that's
response.
understandable. Yeah, I probably would be frustrated if someone was trying to repeat back what I was saying and constantly getting it wrong or trying to say I'm thinking something that I'm not thinking.
Yeah. Mhm.
Anyways, what is it? Tilted?
Yes.
Uh, yeah. How would you define gender? What does gender mean to you?
I would say it's the same as sex because I think anything else would seem complicated. For me, it's I
Mhm.
mean other things would be that like you can be or how do you say it? I'm trying to my vocabulary. Like
Masculine or feminine?
yeah, I think that it's perfectly fine to be a woman and like the typically masculine things, and it doesn't have to mean that you need to change your gender per se, you know? I think it should be okay to like whatever things you like and still being like the sex you are born as, you know? Um, so I think it should be the same as sex. Like gender and sex should be the same thing, and I think anything else seems complicated. And yeah, that's how I look at it.
Do you think someone can be transgender?
Uh, like biologically, or what do you like?
Oh,
It's meant to be that way, or how do you mean?
and what do you think of whenever you hear that?
Well, I think like as if it would be like biologically that it's supposed to be like that, you know, that you're supposed to be born. That it should be a possibility to be born in the wrong body or something like that.
Do you feel as that's a possibility?
Um, I feel like it's not meant to be that way because if like I feel like it would be more natural to be then born the way you're supposed to be, you know? I feel like there's this thing called gender dysphoria, right?
Mhm.
And where you do not well, they feel like they're out of place, you know? And yeah, there's many different types of dysphorias as well, you know? So I think that's something, you know, you can get therapy for it probably.
Mhm. Do you think if somebody was born without any arms or legs that they might feel as though they were meant to have a different body than they were born with?
I just feel like that's like if you're born like that, it's an abnormality. Like it's not if it was supposed to be that way, then like every other person would have like three arms or no arm, like those type of things, you know? So I think abnormalities
Sure,
happened and you
we're
just have
talking about small statistical numbers of people, but like,
hmm
do you think that person might have a similar feel or like uh, sense that they were supposed to be born a different way, or like the
Yeah, for sure, since most other people are born with, you know, two arms and everything working as it should, you know? Yeah, I think so.
so do you think that could apply to the framework of someone who feels that they should have been born with a different type of body, different
It
type?
gets more it gets more complicated there because those things are usually mental. You're born with a body that looks normal, but in your head you feel different. So I think it's quite different because there's things you can see and there's things that are just in your head.
Well, like the
That's what I
person
feel about
who
it.
was born with no legs, like their
Yeah.
body grew and it could have grown out, but it didn't. Like it chose not to.
Yeah.
Uh, and the person who was born, I don't know, without a penis or something, it could
Me-
have grown out. It.
Do you mean without it as if like everything else is male, but they're missing their genitals, or how
Well,
would the example mean?
I'm just saying, like it's. Do you think it's possible to someone feel as though they should have grown that way, just like somebody might say they should have grown legs?
Yeah, if they have the gender dysphoria, they probably feel like they should have. But I think it's more of mental problems. You cannot see that physically that person should have, a penis in that example.
Hmm.
What should we do, like, as a society? How should we treat a person who, like, let's say they have a penis, but they feel like they should have had boobs and a vagina? What do we do?
Uterus.
I think you should try to see where it comes from because for not everyone, but for many of those people, I have heard stories where it comes from trauma, for example. Like some people, maybe they were assaulted and then they feel uncomfortable with their female body and then they want to present in a masculine way to, not be perceived in that way and not be as vulnerable, for example. So that person in that case would probably need some type of therapy. That's what I feel like.
Oh,
I don't personally have like a problem with someone. Let's say someone wants to live as the other gender, like the man, he wants to dress as a woman or whatever. Like
mhm.
it doesn't hurt me. Like you just living like that. But I think it's normal. No, I think it's we should see it as like there is something going on in the head that's not. Like there, no, a lot of people they're suffering with these things. Like they have it's a hard problem for them. So they should get help and they should get therapy and see where the problem comes from.
So if let's say I'm born like a super super scrawny, tiny, just like physically weak man,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel as though my best self would be to undergo hormone treatment to become an absolutely buff macho man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I I, I do a lot of work. I work out, change my diet, change how I act. I get hormone treatment. Um, do like steroids and all sorts of fun stuff. I don't know if it's this tit for tat, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
It's working out for you, David. You're looking great.
Oh, thanks. I'm almost on my way to be a macho man, and I'm going M to big M, little M to big M. Uh, but is that not similar? Like imagine like the spectrum of gender.
Mm-hmm.
So like in this scenario, I'm on this little thumb right here, and I've worked my way all the way up to here. Like that's moving a
Yeah.
lot on the gender spectrum. But a
Mm-hmm.
person could be right here and then move over right there, and they go to therapy and they realize, I want to reach that goal. Like I want to be like I feel as though that's the goal I want to reach is to be on this side of of the gender line. Is
Mm-hmm.
is that not similar? Like, is that not a similar solution? Like, I mean, when you say get therapy, what does the therapy tell them to do? Just to get over it, or to uh, i- is that not a similar goal? Is my quest to be a macho man?
I see the point. I think for therapy it would be like if you're getting therapy, it would be to get more comfortable with your natural self. Like it's not good if you're if you're uncomfortable with the body you're born with, like that shouldn't be normal, you know? Like if I'm born with a female body and I hate myself, that like that's not good. That's not good at all, I feel like. And the thing you said, the example with being born like a weak man, I don't think that makes you any less of a man. Like if you were to get hormone treatment, I mean that's kind of like getting plastic surgery almost, like in the
Mhm.
same category, you know. But like getting hormone treatment or something to help yourself, you know, there is women who do that when they maybe they have PCOS, they get like hormone treatment to
Mhm.
to live more comfortably as in their female body and everything, you know, as it's quote unquote supposed to be, you know. So I don't think like being a weak man makes you less of a man. It makes you have to be like a woman, for example, for being weak. I think that's just like if you're working on yourself and you need hormone treatments because maybe you're something is wrong with the hormones, like I don't think that's the same thing as changing your gender because uh, you're going within what is quote unquote, you know, natural for your gender, for your sex. You know, that's how I look at it. I think there's nothing wrong with improving yourself within the body you're born with.
Mm. Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Oh, I have
Hey,
a question. I have a
yeah,
if you didn't
let's
have
hear it.
one already.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you said that you were what was the word? A gender abolitionist? Abolitionist?
Yeah, yeah. It's a growing uh, perspective that for me here. I'm not.
Oh, okay.
It's still working out the kinks. It takes a lot of time and
Mm-hmm.
thought to figure out. But like in theory, I like a large portion of the tenets.
Okay, okay. Could you explain like what it means? Because this is the first time I'm ever hearing about a gender abolitionist.
Sure. Uh, the general gist of it is basically, as far as I understand, is that kind of just equal opportunities. Like if you can, if you can, if you can meet the requirements of something, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's just the same requirements for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, or also like eh, blue is for boys, pink is for girls. That's arbitrary. Like I mean, it's like it's marketing. It's just a good way to fill the racks at the clothing store and the toy store. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, it doesn't really matter. And this is fun having to explain this because I haven't formalized this very well.
Yeah.
So, but the goal is basically, and I'm this all started because I think because I had a daughter and I wanted my daughter to be able to do anything in this world uh,
Mm-hmm.
if she wanted to. Um, is that really just kind of the goal is to kind of release some of the boxes and the restraints of saying like men do this, women do this, and like I mean you can still have physical like sexual realities like you need prostate care for men, you need uh,
Pap
pap
smears.
smears for yeah, more statistically for women, and, those kind of things, but uh ultimately it shouldn't come up much more than that. uh Maybe I'm working on it. I'm
I
working
see,
on
I
it.
see. No, I totally see the point in that. But would it mean that like in the day-to-day life, would you, within that how do you call it? Yeah, I don't know the word for it, but would it mean that you're not claiming yourself as a man or a woman in daily life as well? Or is it just that, oh, I'm a man and I can still do the things that women do and vice versa? Like what would it mean?
Like, um, I mean, like I said, like the physical realities are still there. Like I think that, but the God. The answer is, I don't know. I'm too tired to figure it out.
I see.
I'll think about it and I'll try to put together a presentation or something sometime.
I want
Right,
to see that
perfect.
PowerPoint, David.
I'm on it. But I'm gonna need to wrap up here soon. Now that school started back for my youngins, my life is much more tired. Wake
Should
up
we
early.
wrap it up here, David, or are we taking another one?
Let's see what Xerxes says.
I thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Telltale. Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
Bye. Oh yeah.
We'll make it quick though. That's what she said.
Can I be Macho Man while we do this? Oh yeah.
All right, you've been patiently waiting. What's on your mind?
I mean, the question is, what is gender? And I was going to tell Mr. Kude here that the reason he's probably having difficulty explaining what he means by gender abolition is that gender isn't actually a thing. It doesn't describe anything about people. It's a linguistic device. It associates words with feminine and masculine characteristics. But people don't have a gender. They just either are men or women. Now, what society expects of them after the fact isn't just arbitrary. It comes from what best suits them. When women are better caretakers, they're more focused on the present, and therefore they're better at multitasking because they can do a lot of brief activities simultaneously, whereas men are providers and protectors. So we look toward the future, right? So while we don't focus on a multitude of things in the present, we focus on a very long track, like a linear progression going further into the future than women do. These are just natural differences between us, and that's what dictates the roles we're best suited to in society. I mean, yeah, if you want to make it carte blanche and say, hey, women, if you want to be in the military or the special forces, you just have to outperform all the men or meet the same standards. And we know the result of that would be no women in the military, which I'm fine with. I agree with that too. Yeah, if you want to play that game. But the people who want women included in everything and anything just don't acknowledge that there's intrinsic distinctions between men and women on a biological and a psychological level. So gender is just a language device. It doesn't describe anything about people. It's irrelevant. So gender doesn't exist. You don't have to abolish something that doesn't exist.
It's a lot to go over.
Yeah. It's kind of sounded like you defined gender as like what society expects of you, but then you said
No.
it doesn't exist.
No, the social
Expectations
characteristics
exist.
of men and women that we expect, like men or women to have certain preferences, is not arbitrarily defined by society. They're patterns that we observe, right?
Mhm.
And there are
Yeah.
certain behaviors that are more suitable for men than there are for women, right? Combat
Historically.
role, a very obvious example of this. Like, there's no situation in which a woman is more suited for a combat role than a man.
Well, I mean, combat's evolved. I mean, kinetic warfare is dying down in a lot of ways, and I mean, what I'm trying to say is the modern world is changing the situation of the historical probable situations here.
So combat is necessarily the imposition of physical violence on an opponent, and women are not better at that than men, just by their very nature.
So
Don't tell that to my ex.
oh no.
Well, let me ask you a question. Right? Let's talk about your ex for a second. You know, was she physically abusive towards you?
I was implying that, but no.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm saying like it's very acceptable in society for women to be physically abusive to their husbands because men can take it. Everybody acknowledges that. If a woman is smacking a man around in public, she's probably not even really hurting him. But if that man were to haul off and deck her in the mouth one time, she's going to fold like a lawn chair, and everybody's going to rush to her defense, even if they were just watching the woman beat the shit out of her man. And there's been plenty of YouTube social experiments to prove that. Right. We know this is the case when men are abused by their significant others. It's funny and comical, but when women are, it's a tragedy, and that's because everyone intuitively understands that women are not physically powerful enough to inflict that kind of abuse. Right. but it's easier for us to recognize emotional abuse when it comes to men because men can be emotionally manipulated. That's fine.
And some hear
But
me
women are
out.
never
Like, I mean,
gonna be successful
this
with
is
employing
about
violence.
statistical anomaly. I mean, this is about the expectations, not about the prescription. Uh, what you're describing
Well,
is essentially the prescription,
prescriptions,
and I'm trying to say that I just want the bars to be changed, like to be more open to people who do meet the criteria, not necessarily to try to move the bar to where it says like, you know, men and women are the same. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying just, I mean, if it statistically happens that it's one way or the other, that's one thing.
do you believe that weaker people are ever morally obligated to defend stronger people?
I mean, in what context? Like,
In any context. Let's be as basic as possible and use like the context of physical violence, right? Would it ever be morally respectable, right, for a parent to hide behind their child in a violent confrontation? Or
no,
for a man to hide behind his wife in a physical confrontation?
depends on how big the man is and how big the wife is.
What does that have to do with anything?
Or if I'm 80 years old and my child is, you know, 30 in the
30.
prime and above, you know, it's like, again, these are about changing the God, I can't remember the word now, but you get the
Context.
distinction I'm making. It's not to
The
say that they're
if you're 80 years old and your moral justification in your head is that your 30-year-old son with his entire life ahead of him should sacrifice his life for your own, right? Like what I mean there is like parents have the moral duty to protect their children. It doesn't matter, right, at what age they are or whatnot. But when children are children, it is never their responsibility to protect their parents. It's always the parents'
agreed.
responsibility to protect their
Agreed.
children. And even
Yeah.
when parents are in their old age, right, even as an elderly man, if you have the capacity to shield your offspring from harm, you ought to do that. Right? That's a moral imperative.
Sure.
Is what was long is to the best of
We're
your
not
capacity,
disagreeing
right?
here. Like, we're
So
not disagreeing.
yes, so women are never in a position to where they are morally responsible for the safety of men, adult grown men. Little boys and young men, maybe, but women are never in the position of having to morally protect adult grown men. That's why women and children get off the boat first. And that's also why anybody who tries to repudiate that notion is considered to be like a weak, malicious person, right? They're weaselly if they try to suggest that women and men are equal in that manner. And even as a person who argues against the whole women and men are equal thing, I'm fine at conceding that. Yes, men should be the last to get off the boat. But if we're going to agree on that fact, then we also have to agree on the fact that women are never morally responsible for the safety of men, and putting them in roles where they are is morally wrong. Full stop. It doesn't matter what qualifications there are.
I it just seems like there's so many scenarios at which this is totally easily an option. Like a
Simple.
school
Is that-
teacher
Find one.
is
Women
I
police
stipulated young children. I
officers,
stipulated young boys.
nurses.
I said there's never any situation
Sure.
wherein a woman is responsible for the physical safety of an adult man.
yeah, we have guns now though.
It doesn't matter, right? Let's say there's a gun on the table, right? Okay, or no, let's say you're laying in bed next to your wife or your girlfriend, and there's a gun in the nightstand, and you hear a bump in the night, right? If you turn to your wife and say, "Hey, honey, get the gun and go check that out," she's immediately going to lose all respect for you, right?
You're putting these scenarios at which it's like, what I'm trying to say is things like the professional world and stuff like that. I mean, these things are more prevalent, like in a relationship situation. I mean, that's you get what I'm saying. Like, I'm not trying to undermine the fact that men are more strong than women 99% of the time. Like, that's not what I'm trying to undermine here.
Yes, and that fact comes with moral duties and obligations, right? Because men are stronger than women, it is our moral duty to protect and provide for them, not the other way around. So,
But I'm
for
saying
instance,
that if a woman wants to be someone to help protect, I think they should be able to do it if they want to.
but they're never going to be better at protecting than a man. Ever. There's no take the Secret Service scandal as a recent example. The woman who left her post to go breastfeed her child, right? There's so many moral atrocities happening in that one statement, right? First, you have a woman who is in a role where she would have to lay down her life to protect a man, right? And that's wrong. Second, she's a mother who's in this position, right? The only person she should ever lay down her life to protect is her child, right? Not some man, especially a stranger, right? I don't care if it's the president of the United States or not. And then you have the fact that she's breastfeeding. So she's bringing her child to a job that necessitates she may have to exercise
Okay.
lethal force against people
Yeah.
to protect somebody.
This still fits in my, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, ideally a woman would, in my worldview, that a woman would choose to do other things, like choose to not do those things and focus on the or what I'm trying to say is there are scenarios at which someone could choose to not have that happen. Like, there's men could have things that could distract them as well.
No. Like I said, men aren't the multitaskers. They're focused on a single goal, right?
Dude,
Women
men
get a
were
lot of
hunters
things
and
done in the
gatherers
immediate.
for 10 billion years. I mean,
Women were the gatherers, men were the hunters. Women had to pay attention to a lot of different details at once, right? Men went out and hunted the food, and they had a long goal. They had to make a singular plan to kill the food because, I mean, they were using sticks with pointy edges. It wasn't that easy to bring down a woolly mammoth. They had to coordinate and plan and focus on a singular objective.
and
Whereas
watch out
women
for
were focused on many
predators
objectives.
and try not to
No,
scare it.
they didn't watch out for predators while hunting because they were the apex predator, right? Even big cats, right, would only attack them when they were by themselves. There's safety in numbers for a reason, but they hunted in groups.
I could see a bear attacking a group of humans.
No, they'll
No,
attack
that's
individuals.
never happened.
It may be like one or two, but if you have like a hunting party of 5 or 6 and they all got spears, right?
How
The
could we
bear
know that?
charges. I mean, I'm just saying, like as a statement, men.
Yeah, no,
focus
but
on
how
the progression,
how
they
could
focus
we
on the
figure
forward.
out if a bear would attack a bunch of people or if it would just only attack one person?
I'm
Test
saying
it
that
out.
animals instinctively do not attack groups, even predators.
Yeah, how do
They
we know
single
that?
them out.
How do we know that?
Because we've watched how predators act in the wild. We know that lions go for the weakest in the pack, right? They gang up on a single individual, right? We've seen that bears go after individuals. We've seen that the other big cat predators go after individuals. Packs of wolves go after individuals. They pick out one in the herd and they go after that one. But the rest of the herd flees. Humans wouldn't flee. They'd fight the thing. They have weapons. They're literally out on a mission to kill an animal for food.
Is that like kind of the same way you've kind of figured out the differences between men and women? Kind of made like
Well,
these
observing natural
observations?
inclinations and
Yeah,
behavior, yes.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
I have used my own observations to synthesize a worldview. That is correct. You caught me.
okay. Could you be mistaken?
Could I be mistaken about what I've seen from my own eyes? Well, I mean, I guess if I was a brain in a vat, but I believe in a God who's truth revealing. So,
Like the interpretation.
as far as I presuppose that God is the necessary foundation of knowledge. So, on what God has revealed to me, no, I couldn't be mistaken.
Is God the reason why you have developed these views on men and women?
But God is the reason why those views are true. My observations have caused me to arrive at the conclusion. Yes, I pay attention to what I observe, and I don't ignore patterns just because the results might inconvenience me.
If you didn't observe these patterns, would you still have the same view?
Well, if these patterns, if the conclusions I drew from the patterns weren't true, the patterns wouldn't exist in the first place.
Let's say there's no pattern. You can't, for whatever reason, you can't observe it. Would you still?
Well, yeah, that view.
You cut
Then I
off. I'm
wouldn't
sorry.
have that view.
Okay.
Yes, if this fact of reality was not the case, then I wouldn't believe in that fact of reality. That's
That's
kind
not,
of
not
a
what I'm saying. That's not.
redundancy.
I'm saying
You're
if you
saying,
had
yeah, well,
this.
I said, well, this is my evidence for why I believe this thing, my own observations, experiences, and the ability to observe the world around me. And you're like, well, what if that wasn't the case? So basically, you're saying, okay, well, if you didn't have that evidence, would you believe this thing? But no, if all of the evidence that I used to arrive at my conclusion was not the case, or at least I didn't possess it, then no, I wouldn't have the same conclusion. Yeah, of course.
The reason I asked this is because I heard kind of two things. I heard something relating to a god, and then the observation. I was asking if the observation wasn't there and only the god part was there, if you'd still come to the same conclusion.
Well, I mean, if God revealed to me the truth, like per se, that men and women are different and are designed to fulfill different roles, I would, yes, I would maintain that conclusion because God is truth revealing by his nature. I would then also map that conclusion, right, to reality, right? So I would see it is also the case, right? It wouldn't be like God says, okay, men and women are different and are better suited to these roles. And then I observe that that isn't the case, right? That would be like cognitive dissonance. I observe that it is the case. It's true that it is the case. And God has revealed to me that it is the truth.
If
Like
God
all truth
revealed
derives from the truth maker.
if God revealed to you that it was actually the opposite, that women act like men and men act like women, what would
Yeah,
your
then the
final
observation
conclusion
would
be?
also change
No, the
because God
observation stays
reveals
the
what is
same.
true.
The
No,
observation
that's a
stays the same.
contradiction. That's a logical contradiction. That would be like saying, well, what if God revealed to you that bachelors can be married? That's nonsense. What if God revealed to you that circles had quarters? That doesn't mean anything. It's a logical contradiction.
Xerxes, man, I'd love to talk to you more. I got to wrap it up, Pierce. Can I ask you one more question, Xerxes, real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Can you think of any type of like expectations or limitations that men and women have on them now that they could probably be loosened as we get as we go through society? Like, I don't know, stupid stuff like men can hug without being weird or something, or a woman can uh, be tough without seeming like they're trying to
Chop some
be.
wood.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying? Like I'm tired and I'm struggling to make any examples. But do you have anything that you could think of that would some expectations or limitations that we might put on people that we could lift at this point that might be beneficial to people?
Sure. So I have two examples that immediately popped into my head. The first is the social stigma on grown men interacting with children in public, right? Uh, like any time a grown man interacts with children in public, it's immediately seen as potentially sinister, and like that's the immediate reaction that most people are going to have. And this is something I've experienced myself in public when interacting with my nieces and nephews, for instance, um, or when I'm interacting with a child family member that I'm obviously not their parent, but people will come up and they'll ask the kid, if they know me or if I'm their dad or whatever. And this has happened not on a frequent basis, but more than one time, right? Enough for me to have noticed a pattern. And I see this in other situations too, right? Like it's seen as creepy if men pay attention to children in a public gathering, right? So and I understand why those preconceptions exist, but I think that in a homogenous, trusting society, that wouldn't have to be the case, right? And then the other immediate thing that I thought about was the social expectation that women only have to provide themselves to a relationship, right? That they don't have to offer anything else of value to the relationship other than themselves. So they are the commodity per se.
Yeah, Xerxes, you have the same kind of like mentality, like a spirited stuff that I'm trying to talk about here. That's the same kind of energy that I'm going for.
Yeah,
Just so
yeah.
you know, and I could very much relate to that as like a dad who want to take my kids to the park or like if I hang out with my friends who have kids and stuff like that. I mean, I'm a very animated person. Like I'll choke slam a kid. I don't care. Um, so I get that. Like, but there is that worry about me. Like I'm worried. I'm like I don't. I'm talking to the kids too much. Am I going to seem weird or something? I don't know. I get that.
Well, there's an understanding, like an instinctive understanding of certain kinds of flaws, right? So like when you talk about like a woman who acts tough, for instance, right? It's already seen as cringy when men act tough, right? Because it's bravado. But it's even more cringy and repulsive when women do it because it's a masculine flaw. Same way when men are overly emotional and cry about things, right? It's annoying when women do that, but it's expected. When men do that, it's repulsive because it's a feminine flaw. When men have feminine flaws or women have masculine flaws, that's double ew. There's a visceral disgust to that because you shouldn't be behaving that way. Like men aren't emotional in public because that doesn't accomplish anything, right? Again, it's the social role of the man to be the protector, the provider, right? They take the action. A woman doesn't do that, so her breaking down crying in a stressful situation doesn't detract from the situation because she probably wasn't going to be of much help to begin with.
What value does that address? Like the, the risk of vulnerability, or
Yeah, like so, like when men,
I gotta
again,
go to
men
bed
are
soon. So
the
sorry, I have
enforcement
to
arm.
get
Men,
wrapped up
men are
all
the
night.
enforcement arm of rights. So, like all moral entitlements that humans possess, right? The only reason that anybody respects that boundary is because there's a sufficient amount of men who will force you to behave that way if you deviate, right? We're gonna like arrest you and put you in a concrete box if you don't play by our rules. But those rules are shifting, right? And you have less and less people that belong to the enforcement arm of rights that have the moral character to make those decisions properly. That's why whenever you hear about women cops in the media, it's never for their value or valor or courage. It's for their colossal buffoonery, mistaking their gun for their taser, or getting completely dominated by a man and needing to be rescued, or forgetting to park their car and running it through somebody's house, or being of absolutely no help to their male partners and getting them seriously injured or killed.
That sure
These are the
does so
stories
hard,
of female police officers.
especially if you get on X. Man, I get on X and I see all sorts of shit like that.
Yeah. Like when you hear about male police officers that are doing a terrible job, it's because they're overly brutal, they're overly cruel, they're overly savage. They impose too much force. It's when with women, it's always they didn't impose enough because they couldn't.
I mean, every fumble and every sort of like blunder is headline stuff. I mean, but again, we're gonna get back into the weeds, Xerxes. Going to bed. Thanks for chatting. We'll talk again some other time.
Send me a direct message, man. Let me know when you're doing this again.
Will do.
This is buddy.
Thank you. See ya. All right,
All
Pierce.
right.
Any closing words here?
Not. No. You got closing words?
Yeah. I want to talk about this stuff more, and I want to talk about what I want to talk to people who feel like they're a different gender. I want to talk to people who feel like they are the same gender they are. I want to talk I want to talk about all this stuff. So, people, if you have feelings about these kind of things, message me. I will talk about it, and I'm gonna get better and better and better at making this a non-heated discussion, unless you want it to be a heated discussion. But then I'll probably uh, I don't know what I'll do, but still. All right. Losing my
Okay.
brain power, going to bed. Maybe a little bit of post game chat, Pierce.
All right. Sounds good. I'm playing that dang outro.